The girl stayed in the car in the store parking lot for only a few minutes, but when her mum came back, the girl was gone. The police quickly joined the case, who tried to find her before the snowstorm. This case was followed by the whole district, but what happened next shocked literally the whole country. After all, it is almost impossible to believe in such a turn of events. Friends, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like, it's very important to me. Carissa Boudreau was born on 4 October 1995 in Yarmouth, Canada. The girl's parents separated before she was born, but her father, Paul, was always very involved in her daughter's life. Carissa was active and cheerful, liked to walk with friends and did sports, but her main love was animals. The girl loved spending time with them and even began to think about becoming a veterinarian in the future. Shortly after her daughter's birth, her mother, Penny, had a relationship with another man, and Carissa lived with him for 10 years. After that time, the woman broke up with her partner, and later she got together with another man named Vernon. He and Carissa moved with him to Bridgewater, and the girl was very unhappy with this move. First of all, she loved spending time with her father almost every day, but now she couldn't because of the distance. Secondly, Carissa had to replace a spacious private house with a small 2-bedroom apartment. At the same time, the girl also did not get along well with her mother's new partner, although he tried to build a good relationship with her. All these factors led Carissa to argue with her mother. A few years later, when she was 12, she thought about moving in with her father. It would allow her not only to see her father again every day, but also to take a break from her constant quarrels with her mother. Penny thought about the idea and eventually decided it might actually benefit her daughter. As a result, Carissa moved in with her father and lived with him for about 5 months. However, the girl faced new difficulties. She had to transfer to a new school where she knew no one, and in the city she had no friends at all. The move was much harder for her than she thought. Eventually, Carissa decided to return to her mother. At least there she had many friends and old school. The girl was happier to return to her normal life, despite the fact that he and his mother continued to quarrel over domestic trivia. Carissa considered it right to return. On January 27, 2008, a girl and her mother went shopping in a supermarket. On the way there, they had another argument, because of which Carissa did not want to go to the store with her and decided to stay in the car. Penny, who planned to take a few things and come back, agreed to leave her there. She didn't care that something would happen to her daughter, much less in such a short period of time. Bridgewater was a very safe city with few serious crimes. However, when the woman left the store, the girl was not in the car. Penny walked around the parking lot, calling her name, but Carissa was nowhere to be found. It was a cold January, and by nightfall, a heavy snowstorm would have started. The woman doubted that the girl had decided to go out in this weather, and almost immediately decided to go to the police. The officers quickly began their search. They needed to find the girl before the storm, as heavy snowfall would reduce their chances almost to zero. After a while, they decided to organize a press conference at which Penny addressed the public, hoping that people would help her search. She also turned to her daughter in case she left of her own free will, and asked her to return home. In the meantime, the police went around all of Carissa's friends and acquaintances, but no one saw the girl that day. The mall parking lot wasn't under surveillance, and the footage inside the store only showed Penny, so it didn't get the cops any closer to finding Carissa. At that time, the main version of the investigators was as follows. After a fight between the girl and her mother in the car, Carissa became offended and decided to either walk or just run away. But the fact that she could not be found in a small town for several hours made the police think that something terrible might have happened to her after she got out of the car. Despite the officers' efforts, the girl was never found. In the evening, a heavy storm broke out, and the police were unable to resume their search until the next day. But here too they failed, until the third day they received their first tip. On 29 January, a man was driving along a road outside the city and noticed a pink shoe on the side of the road. Like all residents of Bridgewater, he heard about the girl's disappearance, so he decided to contact the police. The officers took the shoe, and Carissa's mother confirmed it belonged to her daughter. The policeman focused his search on the area, but all attempts to find her were stalled. The search continued for another 2 weeks until the police received a call on 9 February. The woman and her son were driving along a road about 20 km from Bridgewater. They stopped briefly on the side of the road and the son got out of the car. After a few seconds, his mother heard a scream. Downstairs, the boy saw human feet sticking out from under the snow. Given that they were a good distance from the road, the woman couldn't be sure what it was. She pulled over a car that was driving past them, pointed the driver to that spot, and he confirmed that it really did look like human legs. Then they called the police. The officers came to the scene and removed a human body from the snow. It turned out to be Carissa. The medical experts had to wait a few days as she was frozen. The first thing they saw was that the girl's genes were at half-mast. On the basis of this, the experts committed violent acts but found no evidence that Carissa had been subjected to violence. As to the cause of death, the victim died by strangulation, and experts doubted that she had been killed at the place where the body was found. It looked like she'd been placed thereafter. No evidence was found, and the police still had no idea who killed her. For the residents of a small city, what happened was a real shock, since there has not been a single murder in the last 20 years. Moreover, the unknown perpetrator was still at large, and parents had stopped sending their children anywhere else. In the absence of any suspects, investigators began looking into Carissa's family. Her mother's roommate, Vernon First. The man admitted that he and the girl did not get along well, but this was not the main reason to think about his involvement. The chief investigator of the case was in constant contact with Carissa's mother, and her behavior seemed a little strange to him. Even before her daughter's body was found, she asked virtually no questions about the progress of the search and was largely silent. When the body was found, the woman did not even ask the cause of death, which was also highly suspicious. The investigators were wondering if the woman knew what happened to her daughter in the first place and was hiding it. The police decided to search Carissa's room, hoping to get any lead. There they found 2 notes that were some kind of victim's personal diary. On the first note of December 2, 2007, the girl made a list of things that she did not like. There were items like "Mom engaged to Vernon." "She made me move here. I don't like Vernon living with us." In the second note, the girl also complained that she did not like living in the apartment and felt under constant pressure. However, the fact that the girl lived in an apartment turned out to be useful for detectives. They started interviewing all the neighbors who shared interesting observations. After Carissa disappeared, neighbors often heard Penny and Vernon arguing. Because of the poor noise insulation, they could read every word, and here the police were waiting for very unexpected details. According to the neighbors, after Carissa disappeared, Vernon was screaming, "I know you did it and why you dragged me into it." The day Vernon found the body, he was screaming, "Penny, how could you do this? I don't understand why you had to drag me into this." This turn of events was extremely unforeseen for the detectives. 3 days after the body, they brought Penny and Vernon to separate interrogations. The investigators asked the mother if she had anything to do with her daughter's death or if she was hiding something from the police, but the woman was just repeating that her lawyer advised her not to answer any questions. Vernon was also reluctant to share any new information, and then the detectives came up with a plan. Given that they had absolutely no evidence at all, it took a trick to solve this high-profile case. They arrested Penny and Vernon, put them in separate police station cells. Each of them was assigned undercover officers who played the role of other detainees and had to try to get them to talk. Unfortunately, none of them gave any new information. The next day, the police had to release Penny and Vernon, but this whole operation has paid off. The man who was with Vernon offered him a part-time job. Given that he had a problem with that, Vernon contacted him almost immediately after leaving the cell, and the men continued to communicate. They called periodically, and Vernon gradually began to trust this man. 2 months later, in April, he and Penny decided to move out of the apartment, and he contacted an undercover cop about a job. During their meeting, the man first talked about the Carissa case and said that it had nothing to do with her murder. According to him, he was sleeping at home and did not know what was happening. Sometime after the girl disappeared, he began to suspect that Penny was behind it. When the body of the victim was found, he accused the woman of killing her. She did not confirm that she had done it. However, from her reaction, the man understood everything. He thought about going to the police, but was afraid Penny would pin the crime on him. For the same reason, he continued to live with her for fear of provoking her. An undercover officer passed this information on to his colleagues, who agreed that Vernon's fear was not groundless. If his mother had accused him of murder, things might have gone against him. However, they still had no evidence to arrest the victim's mother. For several months, they thought about how to bring her to justice, and at one point they had the opportunity. On June 11, Penny contacted an undercover agent who was sitting in her cell. Back then, she mentioned that she had certain skills and connections that could help avoid criminal responsibility, and Penny didn't decide to use her services. They agreed to meet in a hotel room. The police took the next room, installed bugging equipment and hidden cameras. The woman told Penny she could help, but she had to tell her all the details of what happened. It was supposedly necessary to understand the scale of the problem and to come up with the most appropriate solution. And it worked. Penny said that her relationship with Vernon started to crack at the seams, and the man gave her an ultimatum. She had to choose between him and her daughter. On January 27, the woman actually went to the store with Carissa. And there was another argument between them. Penny decided to get rid of her. She made up a story, left Carissa in the car in the parking lot, and went shopping. Before she got back into the car, Penny called Vernon and left him a voicemail saying her daughter was missing. But it was a lie. Carissa was still sitting in the passenger seat. The woman got into the car and drove to the road on the outskirts of town, where they would later find the girl's shoe. She told her daughter to get out of the car, pushed her to the ground, and strangled her with a splint. Penny added that her last words were, "Mummy doesn't have to," but the woman didn't stop. The mother put her daughter's body in the car and went to the place where she would later be found. On the way, she put the splits in a coffee cup and threw it into the snow. As she reached the spot, Penny threw Carissa off the slope leading to the river. But before that, she pulled down her pants, hoping it would confuse the police and make them look for violent motive. The woman knew there was a snowstorm heading for the city, so she knew her daughter's body would notice. She then came home and personally told Vernon that the girl had disappeared. They called her friends and acquaintances together, and Penny called the police. After this story, the woman took the undercover officer to the exact spot where she left her daughter's bodies. She also admitted that she had been planning to kill her for weeks and was just waiting for the right moment. Immediately afterwards, the police contacted Vernon. The man stated that he had never given Penny such an ultimatum. He couldn't even imagine that a woman would kill her daughter or even give her up for him. In fact, Vernon was dissatisfied that Penny and Carissa were always making scandal. The man asked her to try to keep her quarrels to a minimum and to mend fences with her daughter, otherwise he would have to break up with her. So the detectives realized that the decision to kill was 100% personal choice and the mother's desire. The confession was enough to convict Penny, and on June 14, she was arrested. The woman was told that her confession was recorded and that she had finally confessed again. She was initially charged with first-degree murder, but the women expressed their intention to retract their confessions in court and challenge the sentence. In the end, the investigation made a deal. She was asked to plead guilty to a judge and be charged with second-degree murder, which implied a lighter sentence. As a result, the woman was sentenced to life with a right to early release after 20 years. However, the court has since relaxed her conditions of detention on several occasions. First, she was given the right to apply for parole after 15 years in prison, but there are no guarantees of her approval. Secondly, in 2018, she was allowed to go out under supervision to attend church and see friends. In subsequent years, including 2023, the court continuously increased the number of such withdrawals, and now a woman can go free every month. As for Vernon, no charges were brought against him, as the man did not have anything to do with Cariss's death. Obviously, the only culprit was her mother. However, he continues to share some of this guilt. In the man's opinion, he had to understand what Penny was capable of and prevent what happened. Share your opinion on this story in the comments and be sure to like it under this clip if you like it I also recommend subscribing to my channel, where I often publish the most interesting criminal news from around the world. Thank you for watching.